Most men grow up believing that if they are decent enough, consistent enough, and patient enough, attraction will eventually reward them. When that reward never comes, they assume something is wrong with their looks, their money, or their status. In my years working with men in relationships and attraction dynamics, I have seen a different truth surface again and again. Men are not overlooked because they lack value. They are overlooked because they misunderstand how sexual obsession is formed inside a woman's mind. Desire is not logical, and it is never triggered by effort alone. It is triggered by a specific emotional experience that most men unintentionally destroy the moment they try too hard to be right. Sexual obsession is not about her finding you nice, respectful, or reliable. It is about her thinking about you when you are not there. It is about her replaying your voice in her head, feeling a pull toward your presence, and craving the way she feels when she is around you. This obsession does not come from chasing, begging, over-texting, or proving your intentions. In fact, those behaviors quietly suffocate the very tension that desire needs to survive. When a man becomes too available, too predictable, and too safe, a woman's nervous system relaxes. Comfort replaces curiosity, and familiarity replaces longing. Many men confuse emotional safety with sexual attraction. They believe that if they remove all uncertainty, all edge, and all risk, a woman will feel secure enough to desire them deeply. The opposite happens. When everything about you is known, accessible, and guaranteed, the mind has nothing to explore. Desire needs space to move. Obsession needs unanswered questions. When you offer yourself fully before she feels the need to earn you, you quietly train her nervous system to categorize you as background rather than foreground. This is why so many men watch women obsess over men who are inconsistent or emotionally challenging and feel confused or bitter. It is not because women enjoy pain or chaos. It is because those men accidentally create emotional spikes: anticipation, excitement, uncertainty, and contrast. These emotions activate imagination. And imagination is where obsession lives. A man who is always there leaves no room for imagination to work. This video, and this series, is not about manipulation or playing games. It is about understanding the psychological mechanics of desire, so you stop sabotaging yourself with behaviors that feel right but produce the opposite result. Once you understand how obsession actually forms, everything you have been taught about being the nice guy begins to collapse. And in the next part, we will look closely at the specific mistakes that quietly destroy attraction before it ever has a chance to grow. One of the most damaging patterns I see in men is not cruelty or arrogance, but excessive availability disguised as care. The moment a woman knows you are always reachable, always ready, always waiting, something subtle shifts in her perception. Mystery dissolves, anticipation disappears. The emotional tension that fuels attraction quietly evaporates. When you reply instantly every time, rearrange your schedule for her without hesitation, and flood her with attention, you remove the psychological space where desire is meant to grow. What feels like devotion to you often registers as predictability to her. Another mistake men make is confusing politeness and respect with sexual polarity. Respect is essential, but when it becomes your entire identity, it flattens the emotional dynamic. Many men speak softly, agree constantly, and avoid any statement that could be misinterpreted. Their conversations become safe, neutral, and emotionally sterile. There is no friction, no edge, no spark. She learns exactly what you will say and how you will react before you open your mouth. Once that happens, Her mind stops leaning forward. Curiosity shuts down, and attraction follows shortly after. Texting habits are another silent attraction killer. Constant check-ins, good morning messages, long explanations, and emotional availability on demand train her nervous system to expect you. When nothing is at risk of being lost, nothing feels valuable. Attention that is freely given carries little weight. Attention that must be earned creates emotional investment. Many men believe consistency builds desire. But consistency without contrast only builds familiarity. Desire feeds on rhythm, not repetition. Conversation itself is where many men unknowingly trap themselves. Safe topics, logical statements, and surface-level exchanges cause emotional categorization. Once she places you into the mental box of nice, stable, predictable, it becomes extremely difficult to escape. This is not a conscious decision on her part. It is an automatic neurological response. Her body simply stops responding with tension or excitement, no matter how good your intentions are. Perhaps the most painful misunderstanding is why women sometimes obsess over men who are unreliable or emotionally unavailable. This obsession is not about suffering. It is about stimulation. Those men create emotional contrast. One moment feels intense, the next uncertain. This unpredictability keeps her mind engaged, replaying interactions, searching for meaning, and craving resolution. Her nervous system becomes hooked not on the man himself, but on the emotional roller coaster he creates. When you remove all uncertainty from the interaction, you remove the very fuel obsession requires. And until you understand this, you may continue doing everything right while watching desire fade anyway. In the next part, we will break down how sexual obsession actually forms and why it begins in her mind long before it ever reaches her body. Sexual obsession does not begin with your body, your bank account, or the compliments you give. It begins quietly and invisibly in her mind. This is where most men lose the game before they even realize it has started. They focus on doing more, saying more, proving more. When desire actually grows from what is withheld, not what is offered. A woman becomes obsessed when her emotional system is activated, not soothed. Calm comfort feels safe, but intensity feels alive. Desire requires tension, and tension is born from contrast, when everything about you is available and obvious. There is nothing for her mind to play with. Obsession needs unanswered questions. It needs moments that linger after the interaction ends. It needs the sense that being close to you is a privilege, not a guarantee. This is why women rarely obsess over men who orbit around them. They obsess over men who have a strong inner gravity, men who feel complete and grounded without her presence. When a woman senses that your happiness, direction, and identity do not depend on her reaction, something fundamental shifts. She no longer feels like the center of the interaction. Instead, she feels invited into a world that already exists. This creates desire because it signals emotional strength. She is not being asked to fill a void. She is being offered an experience. Obsession grows when she wants to be part of that experience more than you ask her to be. Small, subtle elements play an enormous role here. The way you hold silence without rushing to fill it. The way your voice remains calm and unforced. The way your words land and leave space rather than flooding her with explanation. These moments create emotional impressions that stick. Her mind replays them later, searching for meaning, feeling the echo of your presence long after you are gone. Imagination does the heavy lifting in sexual obsession. When you do not chase, when you do not over-explain, When you do not clarify every intention, her mind steps in to complete the picture. She begins to wonder what you are thinking, how you feel about her, what it would be like to be closer to you. This internal dialogue is where obsession lives. It is self-generated, which makes it far more powerful than anything you could force externally. Men who understand this stop trying to impress. They stop trying to convince. They focus instead on creating emotional contrast and space. They allow interactions to end before the energy is exhausted. They leave her wanting just a little more. And in the next part, we will move from understanding into action, breaking down the specific techniques that quietly but powerfully trigger sexual obsession without manipulation or games. Once you understand that obsession lives in her mind, the next step is learning how to communicate in a way that activates that space without forcing anything. One of the most underestimated tools here is your voice. Most men speak too fast, too high, and too nervously when they want to be liked. A rushed voice signals anxiety and approval seeking. A slower pace, a slightly lower tone coming from the chest rather than the throat. And deliberate pauses communicate calm control. When your words land slowly, they linger. Silence after a sentence often creates more impact than the sentence itself, because her mind fills the gap. Eye contact works in a similar way. Many men either avoid it out of nervousness or hold it too long in a way that feels intense and needy. The balance is holding her gaze just long enough for her to wonder what you are thinking, then breaking it naturally with a small, knowing smile. That moment of withdrawal is critical. It creates a subtle emotional question mark. Later, when she is alone, her mind revisits that look, trying to decode it. This is how nighttime spiraling begins. Language choice matters more than men realize. Obsession is not triggered by explicit statements or crude flirtation. It is triggered by layered language. You say something that sounds innocent on the surface, but carries a deeper tone beneath it. Her conscious mind hears one thing, while her subconscious hears another. Because nothing explicit was said, her imagination takes over. She twists the meaning internally. And because the fantasy is hers, it feels more powerful and personal than anything you could have spelled out. Availability is another critical lever. This does not mean pretending to be busy or playing games. It means genuinely having a life, priorities, and direction that do not bend instantly around her. When your attention is not guaranteed, it gains weight. She feels the difference between being chosen and being accommodated. Uncertainty about fully having you creates emotional investment, because the mind naturally tries to secure what feels valuable but not assured. Unpredictability also plays a role, not in behavior, but in emotional range. One moment you are calm and grounded, the next, playful and bold. This contrast keeps her emotionally engaged. She cannot fully anticipate how an interaction will feel, which keeps her nervous system alert and alive. Obsession thrives in this state of alert curiosity. Physical escalation, when it happens, must feel slow and inevitable, not rushed. A brief touch that lingers half a second longer than expected, followed by space, allows her to register her own reaction. If she leans in emotionally or physically, you match her pace rather than push ahead. This makes desire feel mutual and destined rather than forced. All of these techniques work only when they are expressions of who you are, not tactics you perform. And that brings us to the deeper foundation beneath everything you have read so far, which we will explore in the next part. Beneath every technique, every pause, every look, there is a foundation that cannot be faked for long. True sexual obsession is not created by clever behavior, but by a specific masculine energy that a woman feels instinctively. This energy is grounded, calm, and unbothered. It does not rush to explain itself. It does not seek permission to exist. It does not perform for validation. When a man carries this presence, his silence feels full rather than empty, and his attention feels valuable rather than needy. Many men try to act mysterious without first becoming internally stable. This always backfires. Mystery without grounding feels evasive. Confidence without self-knowledge feels brittle. The men who naturally create obsession are not thinking about how to get a reaction. They are anchored in who they are, what they want, and what they will not tolerate. Their boundaries are not spoken aggressively. They are simply lived. This clarity creates safety on a deeper level. Not the soft comfort of predictability, but the firm safety of emotional strength. A woman is not starving for compliments. She is saturated with them. What she rarely encounters is a man whose presence affects her nervous system without asking for anything in return. A man who listens without leaning forward. A man who desires without grasping. A man who can enjoy the connection without trying to secure it. This creates a powerful internal contrast for her, because it is rare. Rarity is the soil where obsession grows. When you focus on becoming internally solid, your behavior changes naturally. You stop over-texting because you are engaged in your own life. You stop over-explaining because you trust yourself to be understood or misunderstood. You stop chasing reassurance because your sense of worth is not borrowed from her reactions. Ironically, this is when women begin to lean in emotionally. Not because you are withholding, but because you are no longer leaking need. This energy creates a specific after effect. She thinks about you late at night. Your name triggers a physical sensation. She compares other men to you without trying to. She feels a pull that is difficult to rationalize. This is not because you did something dramatic, but because your presence left an imprint. Emotional impact always outlives physical proximity. Men who master this foundation stop asking how to make a woman obsessed. They become the kind of man obsession forms around naturally. And in the final part, we will bring everything together into a clear closing message, so you understand exactly what path you are choosing from this point forward. Everything you have read so far leads to a single, uncomfortable truth that most men resist at first. Sexual obsession is never created by chasing, impressing, or convincing. It is created by impact. A woman becomes obsessed when a man alters her internal state, when his presence introduces tension, contrast, and emotion that her mind cannot easily resolve. This is not something you force onto her. It is something that emerges when you embody a certain level of self-mastery, when you stop trying to earn desire and start living from a grounded center. The entire dynamic changes. Your energy becomes calm instead of anxious. Your attention becomes selective instead of scattered. Your words carry weight because they are not rushed or excessive. You are no longer trying to be remembered. You simply are. And paradoxically, this is when you become unforgettable. Many men believe they must do more to be chosen. In reality, obsession forms when you need less, when you do not collapse emotionally if she pulls back, when you do not overcorrect to maintain her interest, when you can enjoy the connection without clinging to the outcome. This emotional independence is deeply attractive because it signals strength without aggression and confidence without arrogance. At this point, women begin to chase internally even if they do not always chase behaviorally. They replay moments. They reread messages. They feel a subtle tension when your name appears. They wonder where they stand with you, not because you are manipulative, but because your life does not revolve around securing them. Your absence has weight. Your presence has impact. This is the difference between being liked and being desired. Being liked feels warm and safe, but it fades quickly. Being desired lingers. It intrudes on quiet moments. It shows up in imagination. It creates longing, and longing is the doorway to obsession. You now understand that sexual obsession is not about tricks, lines, or routines. It is about becoming a man whose emotional presence is rare, a man who does not over-explain, over-give, or over-pursue, a man who creates space rather than pressure, a man who allows desire to rise naturally because he does not interfere with it through neediness or fear. The choice in front of you is simple, but not easy. You can continue operating from effort and approval, or you can embody this understanding and let attraction work the way it is designed to work. When you choose the latter, women will not just notice you. They will think about you when they do not want to. They will feel drawn back without you asking. And that is what true sexual obsession looks like.